Hello there and welcome to another in the series brought to you by the Blessed TV, focusing on issues relating to your everyday life and concern. Today we have with us a medical practitioner, a family doctor, who will be guiding us through issues relating to men's hygiene, Dr. Ivan Williams. Welcome, Dr. Williams.
Thank you for having me, sir.
How are you doing today?
I am not too bad.
You don't look bad at all. You look cool. You look relaxed.
I am.
Yes, you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into medicine.
All right, great. Well, when I was the tender age of maybe 10, I had an epiphany in life.
Yeah.
I figured that I like to fix things. So you could have found me with any gadget at that stage in my life, dissecting it and then putting it back together. Mm-hmm. I developed an interest for fixing things overall, anything, a watch, radio. Mm-hmm. At that time, computers weren't there, but as soon as we got computers, I was the first person to open it up and explore the parts. Mm-hmm. I learned about hardware, software, so many things. But the interest grew, and I further realized that just fixing gadgets and fixing things wasn't enough. So I needed to fix something else.
Ah.
Yes. So I remember borrowing my mother's psychology book, and I got intrigued about the mind. I wanted to know more about the mind. I found a biology book. I wanted to know more about the body and how it worked. And even coming through all of that, CXC, I excelled in the sciences for whatever reason, because I had an inquisitive mind. I had a scientific mind from pretty young. And at the end of CXCs, I asked myself, what next can I do? And you know, the first thing that came to my mind was, I'm in the science stream, so it must be a scientist.
And you're doing well in science.
Well, I seem to be doing well in science, indeed. And I remember even after that, I jumped into medical technology. So medical technology is not medicine.
Right.
It is the study of all the lab-related stuff. So microbiology, the blood work, chemistry, stuff like that. I majored in microbiology, actually. And again, I excelled, and I graduated with honors at the end of my medical technology program.
And that led you into the field of medicine.
Into the field of medicine, because it didn't end there. I actually worked in the lab for about 5 years while being in med school. So I worked and studied throughout med school because my mommy had this thing where she figured that I couldn't have any idle time, because as everybody says, the devil finds work for idle hands. So I wasn't allowed to be idle, but I adopted that same principle throughout my life, and I ended up working and studying. But my interest was really in microbiology for this reason, again, that microbiology is the study of microorganisms, or very small organisms, things that you can't see with your, naked eyes. So I remember that in order for me to remember the different types of organisms, so you have viruses, you have bacteria, you have fungus, protozoa, all of those, I had a color code or a color system. When you stain the organisms on a slide and look at it under a microscope, you can see some distinct characteristics and colors. All of these things kind of was very, very exciting at the time, because you understood where they came from, what it did, and how it affected, us as human beings.
Right.
And, during med school and doing microbiology, it added value, because then I understood the relation between microbes or microorganisms and health now. And the whole idea of being in the medical sciences was just so intriguing.
This fascinated you?
Very much so.
It fascinated you?
Yes.
And you went on to University of the West Indies, or did you go to the UK
well,
at that time?
I went to the University of Guyana, where I was born. And after I finished, I ended up at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, where I did further studies, and I specialized in family medicine. But the idea of health is so wide and so complex that I don't think it was ever limited or boring enough for me to decide to jump ship and try to fix something else. So I stayed.
Yes. And you also had experience as a surgeon.
Right.
For a number of years. You're a medical doctor at the Andrews Memorial Hospital.
Correct.
And in particular, you're in family
medicine.
Tell us
right.
a little about your experience in family medicine overall.
All right. So family medicine, as it might imply, it's not just about family, it's about the general population. And when we look at general health, we're talking about not only women, children, men, but health overall. The context is not just limited to the person, but to the home and to the community by extension.
Right.
So you have to consider all these factors when you are thinking about family, because health is not just the absence of illness, for example. It's the complete well-being of a person.
I enjoy that definition, a holistic part, not just a single dimension. So yes, family, but for this program, we're focusing specifically on men's health.
That's right.
And further, men's hygiene. So I want us to talk a little bit about why men's health is important within the family context.
Great. Good question. Unfortunately, it seems like women have a better grasp on health and their health needs because they tend to flock the hospital more than men would. And we call this health-seeking behavior. So women have a better health-seeking behavior than men. As a result, we find that a lot of men come to the hospital when it's too late or when something is far gone. At this stage, the idea of health is not just to be reactive, but to be proactive. So if a man understands the need for health and that the health that he has translates to not only wealth, but it trickles down into your social circumstances. If you're healthy, you're there for your family. If you're healthy, you're able to provide, you're able to do all the things that a man is supposed to do. So comes back into the whole family medicine context. It's not just related to health, but the whole picture. And one thing can affect everything. So it's important for health to be at the forefront of all of our minds because we want to be able to live and move and have our being.
That's a very important overview, that insight, a lot to unpack right there. In men's health, we consider a number of dimensions that relate to the mental, physical, emotional being of the person. Let's look on the issue of hygienic practices and how it relates. Firstly, let's start with the big one, with reproduction. Hygienic practices and reproduction. What is the linkage and how can men help to sustain a healthy environment for reproductive?
Great, good question. Good question. The thing about reproduction is that we are supposed to be able to, as a living organism, carry out some functions. Breathing is one, eating, excretion, and one of the big ones, reproduction. And it's our mandate, apparently, as men, to replenish the earth, to reproduce. Now, we can't do this if we are not doing it right. And that's a very vague statement, but what I'll add to this, just to clarify, is that your body thermoregulates, or it controls the temperature in the pubic area of men. So you'll find that when you have cold temperatures, your testicles or your scrotum tends to shrivel and get very contracted. That's because the body is trying to maintain a certain temperature. When the body gets too hot, you'll find that the scrotum relaxes and it's a little bit more elongated. But that's the body trying to do its part. The problem that we have as men is that sometimes we try to be, counterintuitive, and we create more of an issue by wearing tight clothing We create more of an issue by not taking care of our pubic hair, for example. So shaving becomes necessary because even though the hair is there for a bit of the thermoregulation, it's also a source for infection.
Right.
So it's very moist down there. We have sweat glands and we sweat. If the hair is there and the sweat is there, you have moisture, which is a medium for bacterial growth and replication.
Right.
Mind you, the human body has approximately 1,000 species of different organisms, bacteria, including fungus. And if we create the environment for bacteria to grow, it will. Bacteria produce odor. Bacteria produce all sorts of different chemical reactions that sometimes even fends off bad bacteria. So they're not bad, they're good. It's supposed to be there. But as a part of being what it is, it can produce odor as well. Now you have skin that is shedding as well. Every day you shed skin. And dead skin, bacteria, and sweat, you can understand the types of odor that you'll get. So temperature, odor, those are all things that we have to control or manage. Otherwise, we can have issues with reproduction. If it's too warm, your sperm count might be very low. If it's too cold, the sperm production might be slowed. So the aim is to ensure that we try to mimic the body's natural thermoregulation by not complicating it, wearing too many tight clothing, for example, or maybe being too warm down there. So shaving helps to cut the temperature. Shaving helps to cut the bacterial accumulation. Shaving also helps to ensure that the odor there is not bad.
Well, you speak about shaving. Some men might be looking on and saying, man, we are supposed to shave. No, sir.
Yes, you are supposed to shave. And somebody might even argue and say that if we have hair there, why did God put it there?
Correct.
And as I mentioned earlier, it's because of thermoregulation as one of the main things. But we know that we had to put on clothes after Adam and Eve decided to do things that they shouldn't have. So the complication is clothing and the types of clothing that we wear. So we have to learn to, as I said, manage. So maybe we might have to just shave a bit to keep the temperature down, to keep the odor down. Because the next part is, if you have a partner, if you're married, nobody wants to deal with a bad smelling genital area. So that's very important as well.
So you're saying that men don't always practice health-seeking behavior or hospital-seeking behavior, don't manifest hospital-seeking behavior.
Right.
Women normally do.
Yes.
And that in reproduction is important for us to maintain the balance in terms of temperature and all of that to make sure that we are practicing good health around the genital area for ourselves as men. Talk to us a little about the other dimensions of men's hygiene. What other areas are specific to the men that you think is important for us to give focus to?
All right, great. Well, let's go from the head and come down.
Yes.
So we are going to start with the ears. So the general assumption is that, you know, we should push a Q-tip in our ear to clean it. And the answer to that is no.
Because it's going to push the further.
Right.
In.
So think of a fist trying to scoop. It doesn't work. It's like punching the wax back. You're not scooping it out. So to use a Q-tip, it's not going to help. It's going to further compact or allow wax to go further back and more wax to come on top of that. That leads to wax impaction. So we see a lot of people come with their ear clogged up because there's wax impaction. So you should not use cotton swabs. What you can do, somebody says that you don't put anything in your ear, put your elbow. The most that can go into your ear is your elbow. But it really can't fit. However, the idea is use a towel and just wipe the outside. If you really want to clean your ear, there's some things you can do. So you find that people are usually impacted on the side that they don't sleep on.
Oh.
So if you're always sleeping on the right
side,
this ear is always free, and this one is impacted.
Yeah.
And that's because wax drains when you're sleeping. Wax drains when your head is down.
Really?
Yes. It's not a big amount or a significant amount, but it drains. Now, the idea is if you're impacted in whichever ear, you can use simple things like olive oil. A few drops of olive oil, turn to the side affected, leave it there for a couple of minutes. Warm olive oil, nothing too hot. You don't want to fry your ear. All right? So warm olive oil softens the wax, and then you turn, put a tissue, allow that to drain.
Okay.
And then if this side is the problem, you do the same. Leave it like about a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes. And you do that maybe once or twice a week. And before time, your ear will be free.
Interesting.
Indeed. So the idea is make sure that you know how to clean the ear.
Yes.
Clean the outside. No need to push anything on the inside.
Okay.
Now, if you do become impacted and all those measures fail, then you can come to the doctor. And they will do an ear syringe where they flush the stuff out of the ear and give you a fresh start so you can go and do it all again.
There are some things that I'm seeing online which individuals use. I don't know what it's called, but it's an instrument that has like swirls.
Corkscrew.
Corkscrew, yes, on it.
Right.
And they actually use it to. Is that
Right.
good?
Well, it's a lot more practical because think of it again. If you're using a corkscrew, you put it in and you turn and you turn. It's going to penetrate and then pull out as opposed to compact.
Right.
So it makes sense and it can work. And in some offices, doctors use instruments like that to help relieve or to remove the excess wax.
All right. So let's move from the ears to the
Nose.
nose.
Now, a lot of people have nose hair.
Yes.
Which is a good thing. You see, the hair helps to block particles and collect particles from going into the inner part of the nose. And the idea is to prevent foreign bodies and foreign obstacles that may be in the atmosphere. Now, the accumulation of that is an issue because it'll look like dirt if you don't clean it. So a lot of people have a habit of pushing their finger in their nose to clear it. I mean, it helps, but you want to use something that's not too sharp, something that's not too rough on the nostril because you have these structures in there that are sensitive and can bleed. So we usually advise people not to pick their nose, but what you can use is a tissue and clean it, or shaving the hair.
What about those who have polyps?
In the nose.
In the nose.
Well, that will be manifested as a difficulty breathing through the nostril because it'll feel clogged up. And if you have that, you can go to your doctor and they can help with it.
So there's no way that you particularly as a man can look.
Don't try it, please,
Okay.
though.
Okay.
It's going to hurt you, it might bleed, it might do so many things. So you need to see your family physician first, and then after, you want to maybe see the ENT or the ear, nose, and throat doctor.
Right.
And they may do a surgical procedure to remove.
To go to the ENT, though, you need a referral from a medical
That's right.
practitioner.
Hence why you go to your family physician first,
Right.
then to the ENT.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure I put that out there so that
Very much so.
you know you're giving good medical advice.
Yes.
So, from the nose.
So we have these little instruments that we use. It's almost like a trimmer, but with a round tip. You can use that, just put it into the nostrils, and it helps to trim the nose hair. It helps to decrease the accumulation over time. Now,
Some men watching us saying this is not necessary. So many times I am maybe 50 odd, 60 odd years old, and I'm all right, and I've never done these things. Why do you think it's so important for males to consider this kind of hygienic care of the nostrils?
well, it's important, and you might think it's not that important because it's minor. But it's important because when you do get, let's say, an infection, and it's your sinuses,
Right.
or you're having some sort of, people call it sinus problems. You have these things called maxillary sinuses. these spaces in your face behind. And there are some frontal sinuses as well. Some people have a persistent nasal congestion, a persistent sinus problem with sinus drainage. And it's because you have these antigens, these things in the environment that get into the nostril and accumulate. There are different triggers. There is perfumes, dog hair, pollen, dust. So many environmental things that can accumulate and cause a persistent sinus problem. By keeping and maintaining nasal hygiene, you minimize the effects of the whole sinus-related disease. So it's important to maintain nasal hygiene.
Okay. I think that maybe is one of the areas that is mostly not, given much attention, but you're giving us good insights into that. From the nose we go to the
mouth.
Yes.
Because it's right there.
Yes.
The idea of oral hygiene. Ideally, you should visit your dentist every 6 months. For cleaning and for assessment. The reason why is because you want to ensure that you're doing the right thing when you brush your teeth. You're doing the right thing when you floss. A lot of us don't floss. It's too much work. But ideally, and time. But ideally, you should floss every day, or every other day, or 3 times a week.
So we have options.
You have options. You have options.
Yes.
And the reason why is because sometimes it might not be practical to floss all the time, but make sure that you floss at least 3 times a week.
What about those, I'm trying to remember the name.
The toothpicks with the little floss thingies.
Well, it's like a toothpick that you can use and go between the teeth.
Right. The dentists might tend to disagree, and maybe that conversation is for the dentist, but they generally say that flossing overall is required. The method as to how, there's some debate, but it's not a bad thing to use something to floss.
Okay.
So the general idea though is make sure that you floss, because flossing reaches between the gum and
where the
teeth.
toothbrush can't go.
Right, and you want to get whatever may accumulate over time from there. Brushing the tongue is also important.
Tell us about that.
A lot of people don't. And I don't know if you notice, but some toothbrushes, there's the bristle or
At the back.
No, the actual toothbrush itself, and then at the back of it, there's the part that you use to brush the tongue. It's important to brush the tongue because there is this little hair-like thing on the tongue that can accumulate stuff over time. And that accumulation can also lead to things like halitosis or bad breath. And speaking of bad breath, gargling is also important. So it's not just brushing your teeth and brushing your tongue. You gargle. So when you're finished, you can gargle with water or gargle with a diluted form of Listerine. I know some people gargle Listerine, and that is very abrasive, I would say. But you can dilute it and gargle.
Listerine is too strong, that's what you're saying. So if you dilute it with water, okay. The other point on the mouth that I want you to touch on is the issue of those individuals with what we refer to as false teeth and those individuals with cavities.
Right.
How do we navigate that? I know you're not a dentist, but you could give us some insight into hygienic practices to keep, those areas in good health.
Well, if you're wearing dentures and you're eating with dentures, for example, your dentures also needs cleaning. You can't not clean your dentures. For the same reason you have teeth and have to clean them, it's the same reason, again, you have to clean your dentures, because there might be some accumulation, not just in the prosthetic or false teeth, but above, sometimes in the corners, when you're eating, food can go under where the denture may be, and that will accumulate. And again, because
and
bacterial
if it accumulates over time, then it becomes very problematic.
It smells. And that's another reason for bad breath again.
Yes.
So it's important to remove your dentures. You soak them in the prescribed fluids, and you wash and come again.
Right.
Make sure you wash your mouth as well.
Yes.
So that's for dentures. There are those who may have things like veneers and the root canals and the crowns. The dentist will give more insight into that, but similarly, you have to clean, floss, ensure that you catch the areas where the toothbrush can't.
All right. We're doing head and shoulders, knees and toes, men's hygiene. We're talking with Dr. Ivan Williams, family practitioner at the Andrews Memorial Hospital in St. Andrew, Jamaica. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back with you after this commercial.
Personal health, hygiene, and grooming. In this video, we will learn the importance of staying well groomed and maintaining personal hygiene. We will also learn some grooming essentials and see what happens when we fail to maintain our appearance. Proper grooming and personal hygiene are essential to promoting good health. Let's look at a scenario to understand the importance of good personal hygiene and grooming. Sam has recently joined a retail store in the sales department. He notices that customers approach him for queries, but they appear uncomfortable and then go to the next counter. Because of this, Sam's sales are suffering. He approaches his friend Chris for advice.
Chris, I am quite worried about not being able to make any sales. Customers come to me, but then they quickly go away without making a purchase.
I think I know what the problem is. Apparently you haven't been paying attention to grooming and hygiene.
What do you mean?
See, you haven't shaved for many days, and it looks like you need a shower. Your body odor could be turning customers away.
Actually, I had been keeping busy the last few days and didn't have time to take a bath.
Well, if you don't shower or wear sweaty clothes, everyone can smell it, even from a distance, Sam.
But what can I do if I sweat a lot and end up smelling even if I take a bath?
You can use deodorant on your armpits every day after you shower, Sam. But remember to not use too much, because the fragrance then gets too much and can make other people uncomfortable.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Anyhow, now that you have seen how your lack of grooming and hygiene is affecting your work, you must promise yourself to take care of it.
Thank you, Chris.
Sam learned his lesson and made it a priority to brush his teeth properly, bathe regularly, wear clean clothes, and keep his beard trimmed. Soon, customers started coming to his counter as well, and his sales picked up. Both men and women must make efforts to appear well groomed, clean, and presentable at all times. Men should shave or trim their beard regularly, and women should get any awkward body and facial hair removed. Now, along with maintaining personal hygiene, it's important to keep your surroundings clean. This means that you should always flush after using the toilet and never spit on the road or in any open area. Finally, maintain a healthy lifestyle. Make sure you eat a healthy, balanced diet and include enough green vegetables and fruit in your diet. Drink at least 8 to 10 glasses of water, exercise at least 4 times a week, and go for a jog or run every day. Remember, it takes only a little time to appear well groomed and stay fit and healthy. But the rewards of doing this are many. Your mind and body will thank you for making the effort, and so will others around you.
Welcome back. Thank you so very much for joining with us on Bless TV. We're bringing to you a special feature looking on men's health, men's hygiene. And we're having the discussion with family practitioner, medical doctor, Dr. Ivan Williams. Welcome back to Head and Shoulders, Knees and Toes.
Thank you very much.
We were at mouth.
That's right.
Yes.
And while we're at mouth, we're going to just go lateral to the mouth and talk about the face.
Okay.
And the beard. Mm-hmm. Now, grooming is important.
You want to talk about my beard?
Not yours.
Yeah.
Yours is good. Yeah, it looks good.
Thank you.
But grooming of the facial hair is important, just like the nostril. We're in an environment where things are in the air and it can accumulate. So if you're not washing your facial hair properly, for example, and you have these thick beards, then dust can accumulate. Dust also translates to other things like bacteria again, which can accumulate. I know that some men, I think they call it lumbosexual, where you have the really big, thick, long beard. And women apparently like that.
Some women.
Some women. A lot of women that I know, I don't know why. But anyways, so the idea is you got to make sure that that is also groomed and well kept. So you got to wash as much as possible. Make sure that you get every bit of it. Because, again, things can accumulate. So if you're staying well groomed, as you're doing yourself, then it's not a problem. I have seen people who have lots of hair. And it might sound a bit creepy, but I've seen spiders come out of it, for example, or other insects come out of it, and they seem to be unaware. And that means that they're definitely not paying attention to their hair and grooming. So it's important to ensure that you groom and keep your hair, your facial hair.
Right.
Now,
when you speak about washing the beard, how specifically is that to be done?
well, we can shampoo it just like if you would have had long hair on your head. And the idea is that you want to make sure it's clean, because things can be hidden in your thick beard.
All right, so you were going on to something else before I stopped you with the...
Well, your face. A lot of men don't think it's important to keep their face, and the skin I'm talking about in particular, moisturized, because that's a woman thing. Only women moisturize, apparently.
You mean after we bathe and we wash our face, we must get lotion and lotion the face?
Well, I'm not saying you should. I'm saying that people neglect their face.
Okay.
And in so doing, you have other facial issues. For example, if you were to wash your face with soap, it makes your skin dry.
Yes, it does.
So try not to use too many products that dry out your skin.
So what about washing your face, with water?
That's fine. Your face produces these oils normally that helps to moisturize
your face.
And sometimes we use soap and they just wash away all that wonderful natural moisture.
So why do persons then moisturize the face if the face already has those things, natural moisture, so to speak?
Because some people don't like to have a shiny forehead, like me, for example. My sebaceous glands, that's what we call them, they work pretty well, and it produces sweat and sebum, or this oily thing that comes from the glands. And for whatever reason, people want to be not glossy. So they tend to wash off all of that so that they can look a little bit better, whether it be on camera or just in life. So the reasons might vary from place to place, but the idea is if you're going to wash your face with products that will dry out your face and your skin, then it can lead to other issues outside of dry skin. Flaking, breaking.
Right.
And then flaking, breaking means that your skin, which is supposed to be waterproof and is supposed to prevent bacteria from going in, can therefore lend to bacteria going into your pores. Then you develop acne and all kind of other bumps or lesions on your face, furuncle, carbuncle, wonderful names that we use. So the idea is...
Wonderful names.
That's right. The idea is that we gotta try and balance. Everything is about balance. Don't dry out your face. Your face will do its job. Some people have other issues though.
Let's just plug in. I come into the other issues, but let's just plug in. With the shampoo, should men condition as well?
Oh, well, if you have a lot of hair like yourself, no, you don't have to condition. Shampooing is okay.
I have a lot of hair?
It depends. It depends on who's looking at it. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Oh, boy. I didn't know my hair was relative, but okay.
The idea of shampooing and conditioning, it's not so much a man thing unless you have a lot of hair on your head, that is.
So let's talk about those individuals who are actually Rastafarians or individuals who are who have adopted the cultural practice of
Right.
having hair that more represents our Afro-centric nature. How their care is also about washing, shampooing.
Right, and it's not a daily thing. It's maybe bi-weekly thing, or every 2 weeks, or sometimes every month, depending on your hair type. Because again, if you have such thick hair, moisture leads to bacteria and then odor. So they will do it, but not as often. If it's a bit less in terms of the bulkiness of the hair, then you can manage it on a daily basis by washing daily.
Okay.
It shouldn't be a problem.
You were onto a point before.
Right, about the skin and the face. Some people are predisposed to facial problems because of hormones. And you might find that they may develop acne and bumps and boils. One of the things that you can look at when you're talking about facial hygiene is your hand. I know it sounds weird, but the average person does this, or this, or this, and your hand touches many surfaces.
Different surfaces.
So you're transporting whatever is here to your face. And that can also further complicate the already, scarred or bumped, or I don't want to say diseased, but people with skin problems. So the idea is to not touch your face as much as you can. I'll tell you something. When I was in high school, because of my curious mind and nature, I noticed that I would get a lot of bumps on the forehead. This wasn't a hormonal thing. I never suffered from acne. But during that time, I realized that I sweat a lot on my forehead, so I would just wipe the sweat away with my hand, and then I'll see bumps almost every time. So I decided to get a handkerchief instead. And in so doing, bumps disappeared, never came again. That told me a lot of things. It told me that I was creating the problem by touching my face. So I advise a lot of people,
so this hand ticking, this hand thing, and sometimes we do it so unconsciously.
That's right.
It's so natural to if you have an itch, or you use your hand, then sometimes you just take your hand from anywhere. Which brings us now to the head, shoulder, knees, and toes, but we're at hands now.
That's right. So coming down to the hands, your nails.
Yes.
That's very important. We want to keep our nails trimmed or cut. If you start to see dirt accumulating under your nail, it's time to cut it.
I find that cutting the nail too far down impacts.
It is true. And how far to cut is another question.
Right.
You want to, first of all, cut. If you're going to cut, try your best to cut straight across, as opposed to cutting and curving down.
Okay.
Because in some cases, the nail can curve in, and you'll have an ingrown nail, especially in the toes, but we're at the fingers now. But that can also happen with the hand. So how you cut it is important. Try not to curve it down too much, because when it's growing, it will grow and curve in.
Well, I curve.
Right. So you have to cut across.
Okay.
Straight across.
Okay.
Because then it will cut into your skin and it'll cause pain.
Yeah, and a lot of men are involved in a lot of physical labor, manual labor.
That's right.
Labor that requires us to do work in the ground, work on the car, work in the engine, work on the... And so sometimes you will see a number of men who actually have, because they work very hard, bits and pieces of oil or dirt or whatever inside. What's the easiest way to clean those areas? What's the best way to deal with it?
When it comes to the hands, soap and water actually is the best. Soap and water.
Really?
Don't worry with the alcohol thingy. I know it sounds controversial, but alcohol tends...
Some of these soaps only have scents.
The type of soap.
Yeah.
So you want to use soap that has some antibacterial coverage. So that kills bacteria, because it tends to do so better.
Protex.
Protex as a soap, but we have these different kinds of wash, the hand wash liquid thingies, that might be better.
You mean like Palmolive?
Yes, or I don't want to say the dishwashing liquid, but the ones that are dedicated for the hands. Why? Because it has some bit of moisturizer in there, so it's not too dry.
Yes, it
doesn't dry out the skin.
The Protex is very Sharp.
It dries out the skin.
Yeah.
So the aim is to use soap that doesn't dry out the skin too much and has enough antibacterial coverage. How you wash your hands is important.
Show us how we wash them.
So the idea of washing your hands is you want to get this surface, get between the fingers, and then between the nails.
Yeah.
So some people use a hand brush
Yeah.
to brush between the nails, so you get between the nails, because again, stuff accumulates
We have
under the
hand
nails.
wash for that as well.
You do.
Okay.
So if you can,
You're increasing our monthly allowance expenditure.
Just to
between
maintain
the ears
hygiene.
and the nose and the mouth, you're kind of increasing it.
well, the idea is it better to be healthy?
Self-care is good.
Right,
Self-
or to lose a few bucks. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that we do our part as well.
That's right.
So don't dry out the skin too much, but make sure that how you wash. So you wash in between the fingers, make sure you get in between there. And you want to wash from like here, halfway down.
Okay.
Both sides,
Yes.
between the fingers, nails. All right, that's the general idea of hand washing. Now, we can't talk about hand if we forget the entire body when we're talking about washing. Sometimes we shower or we have a bath and we don't dry properly, for example. So we have moisture in certain areas, armpits, we have the groin, we have even between the toes,
The rectum.
even between the gluteus, or the, what do you call it? What's the regular word for that? The gluteus. The butt, that word. We have to wash between the
Yes.
crack there and
Yes.
dry between there. Because again, with moisture, bacteria, we have things like odor and sometimes even itching
Yes.
when it's moist. Fungus, as I said, is also a part of your normal flora or the normal bacteria or microorganisms. And in the foot in particular, you can
Yes.
have fungus growing beneath those moist areas, and then you have this thick white area that tends to break down easily under the toe or in between the toes. So if we don't dry properly,
So
this
it's
is the
not
result.
just going in, having a good shower, be cleaning. You have to ensure that after you have applied water, that you have a dry towel.
That's right.
And that you use the towel to dry properly behind your ears, dry your neck, dry your armpits, dry your groin, and dry your feet
Right.
and in between the toes.
That's right. Every crack
Yeah.
and crevice.
Yeah, you're just adding more time to our bathing schedule.
Well,
For those who don't do it.
if you were to practice this, it becomes like a routine, and it's
Yes.
not so much of a problem.
Okay.
So if we inculcate these behaviors, it's going to add value overall.
Let's look on the armpit though. How do we take care of the armpit? I know there's some individuals who are concerned about the usage of deodorant and its linkage or supposed linkage to different forms of cancers.
Right.
And it happens in women. Usage of certain underarm deodorants. I know one or two of them, when I've used them, it actually creates a burn.
Right.
So what would you recommend for those individuals who don't want to use deodorants, or how should the armpits be taken care for?
Well, that's a good question. And a lot of people will have issues with, what do you call it, when your armpit fresh? What's the name for that?
Green.
Green, that one. When your armpit green.
Very green.
Some
When you're in the
people,
bus traveling and you don't have any other choice and the person is holding on to the thing, the railing, so that they
Yes.
don't, and you're seated down and all that is coming right at you.
now that can happen for various reasons.
Yes, it can.
If you're not wearing deodorant, one, but some people wear deodorant and it still doesn't work. You want to have a deodorant that gives you coverage for at least 24 hours. Some of them claim to give you 48-hour protection, but I've tested them, and 48 hours is a bit of a stretch. It's probably 24, 26 hours maybe, and that's it. But you want to use something with a long-lasting effect. That's the first
Right.
thing. You want to use something that has an antiperspirant, because again, we're talking about moisture and you will perspire. The idea is to minimize, because it won't stop it completely,
Correct.
the amount of sweating that happens under the arm. You want to use something that is not alcohol-based. Because the alcohol-based ones
Sharp.
will burn.
Very sharp, yeah.
And that's where you were saying sometimes you use it and you get a bit of burning. There are the sprays and the roll-ons and the sticks. The white or even the clear ones sometimes. Which one to use? I'm not going to promote any brand per se, but I'll tell you what I use. I use Degree for men. And Degree for men tends to last at least 26 hours. And you're not sweating a lot for me. And you don't have any abrasions or burning. So the choice of deodorant should fit at least some of those criteria. Now, I know that some people have a medical problem now where they sweat excessively and even the antiperspirants don't work. In cases like those, you want to check your dermatologist. They might be able to prescribe something better because there are other options available that will help with the excess sweating.
Okay. Hygienic care of the penis. Let's look on the issue relating to circumcision.
Right.
Circumcision, there seems to be a body of literature which has indicated or put forward the fact that circumcision helps in good hygienic health of the males. Where do you see circumcision? That's where number one. And number two, before sex and after sex care of the penis.
Okay, good. In terms of circumcision, in the old law, you had to be circumcised, but in the new law, it's not necessary.
Well, we're not speaking about circumcision as a part of religion.
I know,
but
and that's why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
So since it's not necessary, if you have a normal foreskin that can retract, as in you can pull it back completely without it being stuck,
right,
then the choice of circumcision is totally up to you. Because if you can pull it back, you can wash it, you can make sure that it's clean, and that is sufficient.
Right.
Now, circumcision, we circumcise people when they're young for one reason. There's a term called phimosis.
Yeah.
Phimosis is when the skin is so narrow, the opening of the foreskin, that it can't retract.
Correct.
So stuff accumulates
around
and inside of. When you pass urine also stays inside. So there's urine and smegma. That's the word that we use. But that little cream cheese thing that's in there, wrong word. But that little smegma. We'll stick to the right words. Smegma, when that accumulates.
The right words will not translate to my ordinary viewers. So you using cream cheese to try and direct it just turn some people off from cheese, but okay.
Well, it has a similar consistency. It's not the same. But when that accumulates over time, odor, bacteria, infection. So if you have that problem in children, when we can't retract it, we have to cut it off. So we do a circumcision then.
Okay.
But to parents or moms who are taking care of their little sons, you're supposed to retract it every day. Pull it back. Even if it's not coming, pull it back. The more you do it, the more it will open up and it will be easy to retract so that the child won't have this problem called phimosis.
So the major point with that is whether or not it is normal meaning you're able to pull it all the way down and to be able to wash and to dry.
That's right. That's the important thing. Now, in terms of sex, there's this rule that I learned in medical technology. My lecturer told me that you should always have a few things if you're going to have sex.
Correct.
A bottle of water, a torchlight, and a condom.
Yes.
Now, why bottle of water? Because you want to drink it. Because when you drink it after sex, you're going to pass urine. And the average person actually passes urine after sex. But the reason why is because bacteria have finger-like projections that they use to crawl and move up the urethra or the urinary tract. And that can cause things like urinary tract infections or even STIs. So the idea is that you, after sex, pass urine. That's the first thing. The next thing is the torchlight. Torchlight because you want to check. You want to check everything. Check the penis, check whatever you're doing, make sure that there's no lesions, no cuts, no bruises, nothing. Because some people actually have sex and end up in problems because they didn't check. So there are signs you will see.
Okay.
Warts, you will
see if
see
there's anything that is not normal.
There.
Of course.
That's right. And well, of course we know why people use condoms. But in terms of what you do before and after, have a shower before sex. Nothing is wrong with that. You minimize the bacterial burden after a long day of work. You're sweating at work, you're working hard, manual labor, and you come home and you want to be intimate with your partner, and then you are not clean. That's a recipe for disaster. Have a shower before sex. That's good.
Okay.
Next thing is after sex, wash after sex, whether it be a whole shower or just to wash your genital region. A lot of people linger. And lingering, even though you want to feel close to your partner and you want to cuddle and so forth after the act, sometimes if there is a problem, you will have a chance for the same bacteria or organisms to not only crawl but infect or get into spaces that may have a little cut or a bruise. So the general idea is after sex, wash. Before and after.
Okay.
So check, make sure you inspect, drink water, because drink water and mind your business, or ensure that you pass urine after, wash before and after.
All right. So any other area that you think we have not covered that we should cover?
In terms of men's hygiene?
Men's hygiene.
Well, you know, funny enough, we always tell women to wipe from front to back.
Yes.
How should men wipe when they're doing number 2? That's a big question, eh? Well, the idea is similarly, you wipe from front to back. I'll tell you why. You wipe from back to front, you're bringing stuff forward. You have your testicles, you have your penis. Some people wear underwear and they aim downwards. So you have your penis going down,
right,
and then you're wiping from back to front. So proximity, it's likely that you may be exposed to bacteria from the rectum. They have a different set of bacteria there, which can cause things like urinary tract infection and other type of genitourinary types of infection. So you want to be careful and wipe back.
Okay.
That's the only other thing I can think about at this point.
Well, there you have it. My head and shoulder, knees and toes exercise with Dr. Ivan Williams. What an exercise it has been. I want to thank you, Doc, for helping us to explore, understand, and to gain insights into men's hygiene, an umbrella of men's health, under the umbrella of family health. And it's been interesting getting some tips as to how we can take care of our ears, or our nose, or our mouths, or armpits, or groin area, or our toes, ensuring that we can keep body temperature, moisture, and ensuring that we can keep ourselves healthy. It's important that as men, we give the proper focus to our personal care, to our personal health, to our personal hygiene. We want to implore you to take all precautions necessary in ensuring that you can limit illnesses and diseases. And in spite of the fact that, of a truth, men are known to be individuals who don't like to go to the doctor, to the clinic, or to the hospital. Let us try and change that narrative for our generation and for the generation coming up. We'd like to say a very special thank you to our guest, Dr. Ivan Williams. Thank you so very much, Doc, for spending the time and sharing with us all those insights. It's a privilege, and you can see Dr. Williams at the Andrews Memorial Hospital. On behalf of the entire production team here at Bless TV, I am Omar Oliphant, saying thanks to you for joining us. See you next time.